a chart that shows how far Earth travels in 2 to 3 hours if this object passed roughly half the distance between the moon, and this exactly calculates correctly for the beginning and the start of a meteorite shower.
Now, could this also have caused what happened in Sodom and Gomorrah? Because we know that there was definitely a rock or some type of a huge explosion that just wiped out that whole area there, not just Sodom and Gomorrah, but also other cities that are mentioned in the Bible. Was this also a result of the passing nearby of this celestial object at that time?
Now, this is where the data gets a little sketchy. My personal opinion, I believe it to be true. But there's a little bit of a conflict between the age of Abraham and when it, and I'm finding out that if we go with the astronomical date, I believe that I can fit this in where Solomon and Mr. Gomorrah was at the same time as the Tower of Babel, but just in a different area. Tower of Babel was in Iraq. Solomon and Mr. Gomorrah was at the southern end of the Dead Sea, both being hit by meteorite showers at the same time, you see. And we know that Abraham left Babylon and traveled somewhere in Israel because he was fairly near Solomon and Mr. Gomorrah to be able to rescue Lot. Remember how Lot, and he was warned by the angel to go over the mountain, that it was not safe in the valley. And he told him not to look back. His wife, okay, there was 2 cities, not one. There was 2 that were destroyed. So when they got to the point where they were over the mountain, the first city goes up. The Lot's wife hears the explosion. So she turns around and goes around where she was protected and shielded from the rock. You know, the rock was shielding her from the blast. She went around the rock, and at the same time, the second city was detonated, was going off. Any super large explosion like a meteorite, if you're close enough, you're vaporized. Just like it would be an atomic explosion, but it wasn't an atomic explosion, but it's like an atomic. She was vaporized. Right. Now, if you take a look at what happened in Nagasaki, there's people's shadows that are still there today on the cement wall where they used to stay because they were vaporized. This is what happened to Lot's wife. Her shadow was the only thing left. And the way that they wrote it, remember, it doesn't say God turned it to a pillar of salt. It's the observers that are writing on what they saw. She was turned to because they could see the perfect outline of her. Right. She was turned to because they had no explanation at the time. They didn't have a word like vaporization. They didn't even know what happened to her. They just saw the only thing left was a shadow, and that was probably her right there. Okay? That's how it's explained in the Bible, because you have to separate what God said happened and what the observer is witnessing. Now, they're only using the words that they have.
Do you think, Gill, that these ancient civilizations that built the pyramids, that built the Sphinx, which, of course, you know, it's pointing towards the belt of Orion. You know, it's Orion's belt, and the Sphinx, basically, the face, you know, the body of a lion and the face of a virgin, Virgo. Is this in somehow depicting or related to this object, the trajectory of this object, where it comes from, and how it comes in and out, and affects our celestial, our galaxy, our solar, system? Could this be maybe a warning sign, or maybe something that they used to kind of foretell how far this object was, from, how far away or how close it was?
Let me give you the planetary science version, okay? Mm-hmm. Once an object is in motion in space, its orbit, it's going to be stationary. It's going to always come in and out at the points of reference. Passover, and the end of August. That's its entry and exit point. The third point is locked in at the sun. Things are pivoting. If it has a magnetic field, it's pivoting around the sun. Okay, so you have 3 fixed points now. That locks it in on Earth's orbital plane. Okay. Straight off the bat, we cannot be 4.6 billion years old with a planet that's playing Russian roulette coming through here every 300-something years. The odds of that, we would have been already annihilated. We have to be a young Earth in a young universe because the odds are against us on being old. It's impossible. Secondly, the constellation Monsieur Orion is over 90 degrees away from viewing this entry point. Okay? You won't be able to see it matching up with Orion as if Earth was in the position prior to Passover, like maybe January, February. Looking at the daytime sky, when this object is coming around the sun, then you could line up the two. Now, keep in mind, you won't be able to see Monsieur Orion because it's the daytime sky. You'd have to do your, you'd have to be a trained astronomer or someone who knows stars to better know that it's there. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But that's about the only way that it can line up. See, the pyramids can't be as old as they say it is neither because they're assuming the progression of the Earth's tilt, because the tilt of the Earth would make a total circle, something like 26,000 years. And they assume that that is a constant, and it's not. We were thrown off by over 2 months during Noah's flood. Because when this thing came in, it says it was the second month. And the rate that the Hebrews held the month is it was in time with the harvest of a crop. That means your seasons were earlier. The orbit of the planet did not change. It still came in what we call today the month of March was still the month of March then. But the way Hebrew was telling time between the time of harvest gave him the time of Passover. And his seasons were earlier. The only way you can have that is the tilt of the earth was changed. And now it's later. Now it matches up what it is today. Passover and March are in line, and that's because the tilt of the earth changed. And we can see this. I can prove several times where Earth has changed, the continents have switched, and because it will cause these things to be off some. It's not a constant. Therefore, when you try to line up the pyramids with the stars of Orion, you have to back up the software so many thousands of years to be able to make this work. They say the pyramids are older than Egyptians by several thousand years or something like that to make the lineup happen. But that's only if you use it as a constant that the progression is always the same. It wasn't. This object has disturbed that. So we don't know the real time that this lines up.
Right.
You see, sure it lined up with Monsieur Orion, but we cannot say that it's X amount of thousand years earlier when it was built. We can't pinpoint the time the pyramids were built using the stars at that time. Cannot do it.
So basically, Gill, based on all the previous passages of this object, it's like you said, it's like a Russian roulette. It's like a shooting gallery. It is all about location, and location. Where is the Earth?
Yes.
In relation to this object when it comes by. So apparently, these last passages that we talked about in relation to the Bible stories, the Earth was not that close when it came by. And there were some consequences, some asteroids, meteors hitting the Earth, and so forth, and some tilting of the Earth, but nothing really catastrophic that destroyed life like in the days of Noah. Now, there was a lot of talk during, of course, 2012 and 2013 about the Mayan calendar. I personally never thought there was going to happen anything at that time. The Lord didn't show me anything. I didn't feel anything. But could maybe the Mayans, could they maybe have plotted this thing scientifically, like by researching and doing all this research, and found out that the next time that this object came by, it was going to be different, and they marked it as the end of this Mayan calendar. I mean, I don't have anything to go by here except God's feeling. But have you thought about this? Have you researched this? Have you formulated any kind of theory about this?
I have a theory that I don't have time to prove out thoroughly. Okay, so I'm just going to say this as a general statement, not a factual statement of any kind,
sure,
because I cannot prove it right now. I don't have the time. But if you take a look and examine the Mayan calendar and look at the outer rim, you'll see that it's representing a comet-like object. Multiple times. It's like, let me see, 1, 2, 3. About 20 times or so. It's represented on the outer rim. This calendar is an event calendar, not a yearly calendar or a civilization. It's an event calendar of every time this object came around. Remember how they have a long count and a short count?
Right.
Okay.
Like atones, yeah.
They got other counts also that they're not telling us about that I've looked out. And they can't make them fit, so they only brought to our attention the long and short count. But that's not what it's referring to. It's referring to how many days between the event, which you can calculate in years, each event that this object came by. In other words, if you take what's a Baktun, if you look up the actual Baktun, it's 394.26 years. Guess what? That adds up to it. Exactly when Constantine, remember we have a date when he had the battle?
Right.
In 112 A.D. Well, we know the Mayans had a severe drought and almost about 90% of the population died around the 700s. Well, if you calculate forward into time, the one Baktun, you get 707. That's exactly when the archaeologists saying they had the major drought. That's when this thing passed. Each unit of measure is the span of time between events. Wow. The Mayan calendar is, my theory is that it's an event calendar, documenting the span of time between each event. And that's why there's multiple periods.